Hi guys, welcome to our second Napoleonic Christmas game. We've got a continuation of the War of 1814 as the Prussians are driving into France during the winter. We've got two Prussian brigades on the table here, and they've also got a cavalry brigade of two cuirassier regiments, three cuirassier regiments down here. And a Lancer regiment supporting an infantry brigade here on their right flank, and then towards their centre left, got a second infantry brigade starting to move through these woods with some Lancers also in support. Facing off against them, we have two French divisions on the table. We've got one brigade deployed forwards here, and a second brigade in reserve on their French right flank. And we have a second brigade with two artillery batteries there, a corps artillery battery and its own artillery battery deployed forward with a reserve to its left. And also in reserve for the French, we have two cavalry brigades as part of a light cavalry division. And down here we have the Young Guard, all of it also available as a reserve. So let's see how this game plays out. Can the Prussians be as successful as they were last time? Will the Prussian heavy cavalry be able to, and the two other cavalry brigades attached to their infantry formations, be able to drive off the French? And how will the Young Guard swing the balance of the battle as they get deployed? French line infantry are all conscripts. If there are any légers on the table, they'll be counted as regulars. For the Prussians, we have enthusiastic Landwehr and line troops that are their regulars and reserve formations. All right, let's crack on with the first turn. All right, just rolled for ADCs, and the Prussians did pretty well. Their regular brigade on the far right there went hesitant, but they got artillery assault on their reservists. And then this brigade got forwards orders on both of its regiments, and all the Prussian cavalry went active. So they'll be rolling with 2 dice plus 1 for the hesitant brigade, so 3 for the initiative. For the French, they got artillery assault off against this brigade in the centre. Their cavalry and the unit on their far left flank all had rerolls, which they all passed successfully. However, the left-hand division, both brigades went hesitant. So we've got 2 hesitant brigades for the French, so they're rolling 4 dice. We take the lowest 2 for the French. Right, yeah, so the lowest 2 dice for the French were a 5, the lowest 2 for the Prussians actually were a 3. So the French have initiative, as they have the higher initiative score. French to charge, then move first. Let's see what they do. All right, so completing our movement, looking at the French right flank here, this brigade has remained in position, as did its sister brigade to its left flank. The French skirmishers screens are deployed, and they've seen Prussian skirmishers exit through the woods. So the 2 Prussian brigades that were back here against the table edge used their forwards orders. They got a bonus of 15 and 16 centimetres, so both moved about 30 centimetres forward, and they decided not to take the penalty for moving through the woods. It felt efficient to sacrifice 1 casualty for no movement penalty, given that we had the forwards order on us. Hopefully that's okay to do. So they've all taken 1 casualty, but they've accelerated through the woods to start a potential flanking attack against the French far right flank. In the centre, the cavalry of the right-hand Prussian brigade have moved out, supported by their cuirassier heavy cavalry brigade, and the Landwehr on the far right have moved out. The other brigade remains in position as it was hesitant. For the French, 2 light cavalry brigades have moved forward onto the hills outside the edge of this village, and their flanking brigade has moved up to help form a more solid front line. Right, that's where we are. We'll do a bit of firing. French to open up first, where their batteries are on the various hills. Let's check the ranges and open fire. Right, so all the skirmishers are out of range. They've only got a 20 centimetre range. These two closest French batteries are at effective range. The third battery over there is at long range. All right, so we'll open fire with this first French battery. It is firing against skirmishers. So if the target is skirmishers, it becomes inferior fire. So let's roll for this first battery. We roll a 6. I don't think a 6 at inferior fire will do very much. 5 to 6, yeah, no effect for inferior battery fire. All right, our second battery here with these 2 6s against it is to remind me it's got artillery assault, so he'll have 2 artillery dice. They'll be opening fire at effective range against the left-hand unit of Russian lancers. Prussian, sorry, of course, Prussian landwehr lancers. All right, we roll a 6 at effective range. There will be no penalty here, so that'll be 1 casualty. And from the casualty dice, we cause a second one. So that's 2 casualties, but as the fire wasn't canister, there's no discipline test. So 2 casualties, first casualties for the French, and then finally, our last battery will open fire at long range, and it will fire at one of those approaching French columns on the far right hand side. Okay, so long range fire is also inferior artillery fire. We do roll 8. So for inferior artillery fire, that'll be 1 casualty against those columns. Again, being at long range, there's no bonus for firing at columns. All right, mark those casualties up, and that's the end of the French. All right, so the 2 Prussian batteries on their right will open fire. The left-hand battery is at long range, and it's hesitant. So I think also, like in General Armee 1, we can't fire at long range if we're hesitant. Second battery is active. It was supporting the Landwehr brigade, and it had artillery assault. So also firing at long range at one of the French columns. Wow, they do better. They roll an 11. An 11 for inferior fire is 1 casualty and 2 casualties and a discipline test, and 1 more for the artillery dice. We rolled a 6. So that will be a discipline test against one of those advancing French columns. All right, so these French columns do get promoted because they are conscripts, but they are in a column, so they benefit from a morale modifier that takes them up 1 grade. All right, let's see what we get. We roll a 7. So a 7 for enfant perdu would be unformed. Actually, for a reservist, because of the bonus, they become they are still unformed. So even though they got the morale bonus, so it's definitely better to keep my recruits, my Mary Louises, in column, but we still go unformed, so I'll go and adjust that battalion. That's the end of firing. There will be no close combat, so that's the end of turn 1. All right, so we rolled for activation. All French units are active. We went for re-rolls, put them on our 5 front brigades, the 3 infantry and the 2 cavalry brigades. For the Prussians, we put re-rolls on all of our rearmost units, and we actually put the forwards order on the regiment of Prussian regulars that failed their orders last time. They all went off, as indeed did the activations of all units that had no re-rolls. So no penalties this time, there'll be a straight roll off. The French roll a 7, the Prussians roll an 8. The Prussians get to move first. Let's see what they do. Right, let's summarise Prussian movement. So the brigades that were moving through the woods here, the reservists have continued to advance. They slowed down this turn, didn't want to take any extra casualties, and the line units moved all up to the edge of the wood line so they can move out successfully next turn. Their reserve Landwehr brigade continues to move around the edge of the woods to provide them some flank support and reserve for the army. And the cavalry brigade also is now moving around to start to deploy. In the centre, the Landwehr Lancers have moved up to start threatening the French line, hopefully try and force the French to go into square when they do their manoeuvre, and the Cuirassiers are moving up potentially to do a threatening flank charge either to any one part of this line as they see fit. And the Landwehr and Prussian regulars over on the right are now pretty much neck and neck as the forwards order has applied, and they've also limbered up their foot artillery as well to provide some support as the assault goes in. All right, let's see what responses we get from French movement. Right, looking at this from the left flank of the French area, you can see our chasseurs and cheval that were up on this hill have advanced in support of this French artillery battery. The conscripts have moved forward. There was one unit that was unformed. That was the one with the one casualty. So it formed up, and its lead has been taken by the two other checkerboard or echelon battalions that have now moved through the line and are continuing the advance towards the Prussian Landwehr. The French, who are conscripts who are on the hill, have taken the opportunity to form squares to secure this part of their line against a possible attack by the Prussian all-hands, Prussian Landwehr cavalry. All right, that's it. It'll now be time for firing. I think we'll probably kick off first with our Prussian skirmishers. Let's see how they do as they open up against this French skirmish line. All right, let's open up. We need two 4, 5s or 6s to cause a casualty, and we cause no casualties with that skirmish fire. All right, we'll now open fire with the further skirmishers. We will just check those ranges to the French columns and squares. Yeah, it made no difference, but I realised I should have been losing a dice as I was firing at skirmishers, so it would have only been 2 dice for each one of those skirmish screens firing. For the further skirmish screen, it'll fire at the square first, and again, causes no casualties, and the other skirmish screen will open fire at the advancing column. We actually cause 1 casualty this turn, not a great return for the Prussian skirmishers. All right, the French skirmish screen will fire back. Let's see what they can do. No, they cause nothing, and all other French skirmishers have retired. All right, 1 casualty. There will be now some artillery fire. For the Prussians, we only have 1 battery, our horse artillery battery, which is moving up with the Cuirassier brigade. It has unlimbered, supported by the Prussian Landwehr Lancers, and is opening fire at this French square. Let's see how they do. They're not firing canister, unfortunately, but the target is in square, so they will get 1 combat dice. They did move, so I'm sure they will take a penalty, but we will check that. Battery moved and unlimbered. Actually, we only get 1 combat dice. So 1 combat dice for firing at square, and 1 combat dice for the fact that we moved and unlimbered. All right, so just 1 casualty against the square. That's it for Prussian firing. Let's see the French return fire. All right, so this gun will open fire across the valley at these Prussians on the wood line. It's long range, so that becomes an inferior artillery battery, and then it's firing at target in cover in the woods. So it only gets 1 combat dice, which causes no casualties. All right, next, this battery on the hill. This is a heavy battery of 12-pounders, so it's got a range of out to 25 centimetres. Those Prussian Landwehr cavalry are definitely within that. So this will be canister range. So firing canister, we get 2 combat dice, and I think that's the only modifier. Let's see how we do. We roll an 8 and get an extra casualty from the combat dice. So on an 8, that will be 1 casualty up to 2 because of the combat dice, and a discipline test on those Landwehr cavalry. All right, let's mark those casualties up and take the discipline. Right, so the Landwehr cavalry are enthusiastic, so they do get 1 bonus, and they're on 2 casualties, so no modifiers for that, and we roll a 6. I think that will mean that we go unformed, so the Landwehr cavalry on the right goes on. All right, then the final Prussian battery back here is going to fire against the advancing Prussian regulars. This will be at long range, So this will be inferior artillery shot. We've rolled a 6. So for an inferior artillery shot, that is no casualties. So no great effect from the artillery this turn. Need to wait for the ranges to close. That's the end of turn 2, and we'll resume with turn 3. All right, not great activation turn for the Prussians. So for the French, first, all their brigades are active, and they put artillery assault on this battery that's threatened in the centre. For the Prussians, their line infantry in the woods went hesitant, although the reservists are active, and both their reserve brigades are hesitant, as is their landwehr on the far right. So the Prussians have no less than 5 dice to roll, taking the 2 lowest. Yeah, that's definitely going to be a French initiative. They've got 5, and the Prussians have only got 4. If I take 3 rather, if I take the 2 lowest dice. So French have initiative and get to charge and move first. Right, on skirmish fire, pretty much ineffective. A couple of casualties caused, but nothing too major. All right, we'll open up with this French battery against these Prussian cuirassiers. All right, this is at effective range, no modifiers, and we roll a 6, which is standard battery. It's outside a canister range, so just 1 casualty on the cuirassiers. Just mark that one. All right, next battery to open up will be the French heavy artillery. This is at canister range, so it'll get 2 artillery dice, and it is a large battery, so actually I should have done this last time. It actually gets 3 dice for this battery here against the landwehr cavalry. Right, let's see how they do. We roll a 9, that's pretty good, and 1 extra from the casualty dice. So 9 at close range is 2 casualties, that's 3 casualties and a discipline test on the landwehr cavalry. Right, that takes that landwehr cavalry up to 5 casualties. I think as it's failed the discipline test, it may no longer be enthusiastic because it went unformed last time. Let's just check the enthusiastic. Okay, actually it's the first failed test by any unit in that brigade, so both those units of Prussian landwehr lancers are no longer enthusiastic, so they will be fighting as conscripts for the rest of the game. They roll a 7, that means again they go unformed. But on 5 casualties there are no further penalties. And then finally we will fire our gun over here, and that will go again against one of those Prussian columns. This time this one will be at effective range, so it will gain a combat dice as this battery here opens fire against these columns. All right, let's see how we do. With 1 combat dice, we roll a 7 at effective range. Standard battery fire, a 7 is 1 casualty on the Prussians, and 1 from the combat dice, so that'll be 2. Right, so the Prussians will now open up. The only thing to fire will be their horse artillery down here. This is at effective range, firing at a square. So target is square, so they get 1 combat dice, but they're out of canister. But they roll well. They rolled an 11, and they didn't move this turn. So that's 3 casualties plus 1 for the combat dice, so that is 4 casualties and a discipline test against the French square. All right, so the French square has to take a discipline test, and let's see, for a discipline test, I will just check. Let's have a look. All right, so they are in square, so they do count as reservists when they're formed in square. They roll a 12. That is good. They don't get a destiny test for a 12. It's only for charging, volley fire or artillery fire, but they definitely pass that test and stay formed up. All right, that's it for firing this turn. There is no musketry, although we might fire with our columns at some of these French skirmishers. Sorry, Prussian skirmishers. So hang on a second. All right, so we did cause one casualty against one of the Russian skirmish screens from one of those attacking French columns in the distance there, but no other effect. All right, let's have a review of where we are after the end of turn 3. So the left flank of the Prussian attack is getting poised to do an assault against an open flank here. Pretty much all of the 6 Prussian line and reservist battalions are now at the edge of the woods, able to advance. The only slight disadvantage for the Prussians on this flank is their reserve, Landwehr and cavalry, which were marching around the woods, stalled last turn and are not in a position to support. The Prussians have also moved their heavy cavalry across to the left to try and bludgeon this position and make their way and support this Prussian assault on the left flank. We'll see how they do. In the centre, the Landwehr cavalry has been taking a lot of artillery fire from the French, but has not yet broken, and the 2 Prussian brigades, brigades are moving forward. For the French, no major redeployments. Their front lines have gone into square, threatened by all this Prussian cavalry, and they were thinking about doing a counterattack with their brigade on the left. They have moved their light cavalry up in a position to support. So you may see some counterstrikes against the Landwehr cavalry perhaps in the next turn or 2. Anyway, battle developing nicely, nothing too catastrophic impacting either side. We'll see what happens when we resume with turn 4. All right, here we are resuming on turn 4. So we've rolled for ADCs. The Prussians got all of their 8 ADCs off. The French only got 5. For the Prussians, they took a bit of a risk. They put forwards orders on both of these divisions coming out of the woods to try and accelerate their attack on the left. They left their cavalry and their right-hand brigades with no ADC rerolls. Unfortunately for the French, the cuirassiers went hesitant, but all other units went active, including the reserve brigade. For the French, again, they took a risk as well. They allocated 2 of their ADCs to artillery support here, and that one went off despite having no reroll. They put a reroll on the battery in the centre. That one also went off. And for the French, the rest of their infantry are active, but unfortunately both of their light cavalry brigades failed. So the French have got 2 hesitant brigades. The Prussians have got 1. So let's see what we do. Well, you have to take the 2 lowest dice. So it looks like I got those dice the wrong way. No, I did. I did get them the right way around. So it does look like the French have got initiative, which will help them in this next round. All right, French get to move first. All right, so the French didn't do any charges with all their cavalry hesitant. The Prussians did decide to charge with their Landwehr cavalry, even though the guns have got assault fire, because they're going to be fired on anyway, so they might as well try and execute the charge and see if they get somewhere. We're not expecting great results from that, but at least it keeps that battery pinned down, not firing at the infantry. So we've got that charge result to do. We'll start with the defensive fire by the French 6-pounder. Right, this could be fairly painful. There's 4 combat dice here, 2 for firing canister at short range and 2 for assault fire status. So the French roll a 7, but they do get 4 extra casualties. So a 7 for a standard battery is 1 plus a discipline test. So this will be a discipline test, 5 casualties on that leading Prussian brigade, and then for the bounce through, that doesn't cause any casualties. So this will be a discipline test with 5 casualties on that first brigade. Right, so given that we haven't failed, I don't believe, a discipline test on this Prussian cavalry, so they will still count as an enthusiastic Landwehr. So they get 1 bonus, so they're not enfants perdus, they count as reservists. Let's see what they do after that casualties. They roll a 9. That's good enough for them to continue the charge. All right, so they don't break as a result of that artillery fire, but they will still, I think, struggle to charge home. Let's see what they do. All right, so looking at this charge, the Allies have to take 3 dice and select the lowest 2 because they've taken more than 3 casualties in the fire. And the 2 supporting squares can't actually provide rerolls, but they can do closing fire at the 3-inch point. So actually there should be 2 more shots. So 2 more fire dice. We do cause 1 more casualty. So we have actually caused 6 casualties on the attacking cavalry. They would have still passed their discipline test, but I will just check. Yeah, I think from memory they rolled a 9, and they actually would need a 9 to pass that discipline test. So they passed the discipline test, but on the charge result, there is a modifier for suffering more than 3 casualties in the charge. Let's see what other modifiers we have. Suffered on 6 or suffered 3 casualties in the charge is one of the modifiers, but they're not 2 separate modifiers, and they're not disordered or shaken or unformed. So it still will be 3d6 for the Prussians, taking the lowest 2. All right, let's see what this result is. So the artillery gets an 8, and for the cavalry we actually get a 4. So that's a 6 versus a 4. So that's a -2 charge result. Cavalry versus artillery. On -2, the defender stands and the attackers fall back with 1 combat dice worth of casualties. All right, let's apply those combat dice casualties to those 2 attacking Prussian brigades and do that with. All right, so we've completed movement for turn 4. So the Prussians troops that were in the wood line are now advancing towards this hill in a potential outflanking position. Cuirassiers have had to hold position because they were hesitant. The French have decided to move their reserve infantry to brigade forward to sort of fill this vacant gap here on the right. The French cavalry, or rather the Prussian cavalry, have fallen back and are unformed. Their reserves are moving forward. And over here on the left, no one had enough ADCs for infantry assault orders, but both the French and the Prussian brigades are moving into contact range for sure next turn. All right, that's it for movement. Let's do firing. French had initiative, so their skirmishers will go first, and I'll come back after I've done the skirmish fire with that artillery battery on the hill, opening up against the attacking Prussians. All right, so the the French battery on the hill is going to open fire. This is a normal artillery battery. Its closest target is this infantry column 20 centimetres away. So for a 6 to 9 pounder, 20 centimetres is just within canister range. I don't think they're going to be able to choose to fire canister because they've got their own skirmish screen in front of the guns. So we'll have to fire ball shot. I assume you can elect still to do that. So that will be just 2 dice against that attacking column, but it is a column at effective range, so there will be 1 combat dice for that. We roll a 7 for a standard shot. That is 1 casualty. It would be a discipline test if we'd fired canister, but we didn't, so nothing from that. It did have artillery assault on, of course, so it has 2 extra casualty dice. 1 more casualty on that unit, taking it up to 3. But not enough to cause a discipline test. All right, that's that French battery fired on this hill. The battery on that hill, of course, fired earlier against the attacking French cavalry. So we'll now fire our 3rd battery on the far left-hand side. It'll attack those closing Prussian columns. They again will be at effective range. So there will be 1 combat dice on this, no artillery assault. Let's see what we roll. We roll another 7, so we're learning this one quite well now. So that will be 1 casualty for the artillery fire. It's not canister, so no discipline test, and 1 more for the artillery dice for firing at a column. All right, that's it for French artillery. All right, so a bunch of the Prussian batteries are now in range and deployed, so they can open fire. Firstly, we'll start with this horse artillery battery that was supporting the cuirassiers. That's going to fire at the French square here. I think I get an extra combat dice for firing at a square at effective range. Targeting square, 1 combat dice. Yeah, 30 centimetres, so it's effective range. Let's see what we do. We roll, I got the dice the wrong way around, but the 2 dice are the normal shot, so I got a 10, that's pretty good. So that's 2 casualties and a discipline test, but nothing from the combat dice. So 2 casualties on this square from this horse artillery battery down here. All right, the second horse artillery battery, actually I think it's only got 2 crew, so it must be a horse artillery battery. Will fire against these lines on the hill. You may recall these were in column, but with the Landwehr cavalry having been pushed back, the French redeployed into line again. So there'll be no bonus for the Prussians on this, a shot at effective range. We roll a 6 and a 2, that's an 8. So an 8 is 1 casualty against the right hand column. So we'll put that on in a second. And then finally our last Prussian battery, that one in the open field down there, will open fire against one of those attacking French columns. These are at effective range. We'll get the colours of the dice the right way around this time. So we roll a 6 and 1 more for the casualty dice. A 6 is just 1 casualty again, but 1 more for the combat dice. So 2 on that French column. All right, that's the artillery fire done. There'll be a little bit of musketry from these columns as they close, but they'll only get 1 combat dice each, as they're all in column moving forward. All right, we've done ADCs for turn 5. The French got 8, which was great. So we've put, again, artillery assault fire on this brigade defending in the centre, artillery assault fire on the brigade to its left-hand flank, and we've got infantry assault against our conscripts on the far left flank. For the Prussians, unfortunately, they only got 4 ADCs, so they've put infantry assault on these 2 brigades, and then they relied to luck on the rest, which did not serve them well. So the cuirassiers have gone hesitant again. The withdrawing cavalry and all the reserves down here are hesitant. The light cavalry brigade is able to move, and the 2 furthest Prussian brigades are able to move, but they're not able to assault as they didn't get infantry assault off. All right, let's see what we do here. So the Prussians have got to roll no less than 5 dice with 3 hesitant brigades, and they get a 4 as a result against the French 8. The French retain initiative in turn 5, and they will get to charge. All right, so we've got 2 successful charges off over here on the far left of the French line. Their columns have charged into the reservist brigade, and then as we zoom out, down here, the Prussians, the regulars, were able to reach the guns but not the squares, so they've charged the guns on the hill. Can they do any better than the cavalry did? Unfortunately, this 2nd brigade were out of range, didn't roll enough on their charge move to charge home. They should not actually move forward till the movement phase, but I have moved them in any event. Perhaps I'll move them back if the charge fails. In fact, I will move them back if the charge fails, and then we'll decide what to move with them. All right, let's do the charge effects. We'll start with the Prussians, just because I'm standing close to them, even if the French should be going first. Let's do this Prussian fire, Prussian charge. The French get artillery assault and canister, so they get 4 dice, and they've taken no casualties. Wow, they rolled an 11 with 3 extra casualties. I think they're going to throw back another Prussian assault here. Let's see what they do with an 11. So they cause 3 casualties, so that's 6 casualties and a discipline test against that attacking Prussian column. All right, so this is a discipline test against a line unit. However, they took they have more than 6 casualties. So they are demoted 1 step, but they are they've got to take their discipline test first, but they are not already unformed. That was the charge result. I'm getting them confused. All right, let's see what they do on their discipline test. They are demoted 1 category because of the number of casualties they took. They are on set. They roll a 7 for a reservist, means they go unformed because of their demotion. Right, so they are both shaken and disordered because they have both more than 6 casualties and they have gone unformed. So they have to roll 4 dice, the Prussians, against the French 2. The French roll a 7 against the lowest 2 dice for the Prussians, which is a 3. So that's a -4 result
infantry against artillery. The lead unit withdraws and takes one further casualty, and supports halt and take one casualty.
All right, let's withdraw that leading unit. All right, not too bad a result for the Prussians there. Obviously not great to take that number of casualties, but none of the casualty dice from the withdrawals caused any incremental losses to the 3 battalions. They both rolled under, all 3 of them rolled 3 or under. So the lead unit has had to withdraw, but it's able to stop behind formed colleagues, and as the other 2 battalions did not have to withdraw, they can just stop. They're in very close proximity to those squares, still unfortunately close to those guns as well, but we'll see how the attack continues to unfold. I did do the shooting from the squares as well. I didn't film that, but it did not cause any extra casualties. All right, so we've got the combat on the far side of the table to do. So there'll be a couple of shots from the defending Prussian reservists. 2 combat dice for firing as in column. They do cause 1 casualty on each of those attacking French columns, but not enough to affect the combat result. Let's do the charge over there. All right, so both columns over there are getting 2 rerolls because of their supporting battalions, but no other modifiers. Let's see what we get. Wow, well, we got some good dice rolls here. The French have got a 12. I don't think they're going to re-roll that, and the Prussians actually got an 11. So I don't think any point in doing any re-rolls. That is a result of -1. So the French will halt and they will volley their opponents. Because they're in column, that's simply a combat dice. So that's 3 attacking columns, so 3 combat dice for the French, working from the top down. And so for the top, the second, no casualties. The third does get a casualty. So 1 casualty on those Prussian reservists, and those columns all stay in place. And we'll do some firing at one another later in the time. So the remaining French batteries are going to open fire. The one with artillery assault first, so we'll get 2 combat dice for artillery assault, 1 more for firing at columns. It's going to fire at that Prussian column there. It's at effective range. They roll a 5. I don't think that is any casualties, and they got nothing with their combat dice. That promised a lot, but has delivered not quite nothing at all. It causes 1 casualty on the Prussians, but that's it. And then finally, the last French battery will open fire, also at effective range, against the column that's next to it. So it will get 1 combat dice. It rolls a 3, so that's a fatigue casualty on itself, but it did get 1 casualty from the combat dice. So the French battery takes 1 casualty, and both the Prussian columns take 1 casualty. All right, here we are at the end of turn 6 then, so let's do a recap where we are. So the Prussian cuirassiers have struggled to be able to move from this position in the centre, having been hesitant for a couple of turns. They continue to threaten the French on the hill, and the Prussians are trying to take advantage of that, but this French gun battery in the centre has done 2 devastating shots, or a devastating shot driving the French back this turn, and the French battery there did a devastating shot against these Prussian Landwehr, drove them back. Over on the far side, we've got the start of a combat that might last for a turn or 2 as those 2 Prussian brigades attack that brigade of French conscripts. All right, let's roll ADCs and see what turn 7 brings us. All right, both sides are being greedy. We've got quite a few hesitant units, but net, the French again have got artillery assaults on their 2 central brigades, but didn't manage to get an activation, and indeed went hesitant with their brigade on their far left. The Prussians have got infantry assault off on that brigade and infantry assault off on these 2 brigades down here, but the cuirassiers are still hesitant despite having a re-roll. They rolled a 1 and a 2, and 2 more of their reserve brigades are hesitant this turn. Sorry, and I haven't rolled for the activation of this the French brigade at the rear, but that one is active as well. So French have initiative. They will get to declare their charges first, of which I don't think they have any. So Prussian charges. Let's see. All right, so this reservist brigade goes in. The artillery cannot fire as they are masked by the regular brigade to their right. The square opened up. It did cause 1 casualty on the attacking Prussians, but not clearly enough to disrupt them. Let's see what happens as this brigade charges that square. All right, so looks like there are no modifiers for being in square. So this will be a straight roll off. The Prussians will definitely get 2 supports.
from their brigade. I will check whether you can support a square. I know a square cannot provide support, but I will check to see whether a square can receive support from that battalion behind it. Guns can't provide support, only supporting fire, which will not apply in this case. So there may be one French reroll. Let's see how we do. Right, well, we will use both of our Prussian rerolls as we've got a double 1, and we're on a 5. The French have already rolled a 6. They will not bother with a reroll because they will have won that charge, amazingly enough. So the charges again fail by 1, so they will halt and they will do a volley into that square. So there'll be 3 shots as the attacking columns can only fire 1 fire dice each. And we do 2 casualties on the square, and they'll fall back to the 5 centimetre range. All right, so for the second time, the Prussians will try and assault these guns. So there'll be artillery assault by the French. Let's see what they can do to this Prussian column. Well, not great for the French this time. Really terrible roll. They've only rolled a 4. I don't think that does anything, and they've caused 1 casualty with one of their casualty dice. Indeed, they take a fatigue casualty on themselves, the gun does. So that French column takes 3 casualties now, but not enough to disrupt the charge. Let's see what happens as the column with 1 support goes into these. Okay, so the Prussians will get a reroll in this charge. Again, the French are doing pretty well. They've rolled a 7, the Prussians only a 6. They will take their reroll and they get a 6. So the French have again won. These columns will stall. They can both volley into that gun crew. They cause 1 more casualty on the gun crew, but stay exposed in front of the barrels of the gun, unable to charge home. These French conscripts are hanging in here to this defence. All right, then finally we'll do our Prussian assaults against these conscripts on the far French left. All right, this will be a straight roll-off, but the Prussians this time will have 2 rerolls as they have 2 supporting regiments. The French, as you can see, have none, as all their supporting battalions are actually ahead of them. All right, let's see what happens. And we roll this combat. Prussians have 2 rerolls. French roll a 6. Their luck could not last forever. We are going to take a reroll on that 3. Yeah, we'll keep it at a 10. So the Prussians have won by 4. So a victory of 4 means they take the ground, the defender retreats, and it takes 4 CDs worth of casualties. Right, let's roll those 4 CDs worth of casualties on the French. They take 2 casualties and they have to retreat. And that Prussian brigade breaks the French line on the far. Right, so here we are at the end of turn 7. So the Prussians are pushing hard on this hill, but we do have French reinforcements starting to come out of the town to potentially threaten their flank. And the Prussian heavy cavalry remains inert, unable to move. Over here, the Prussians did make a breakthrough in their charge, drove one of the French battalions back, and the other 3 French battalions are now being flanked by Prussian skirmishers, as well as the 3 battalions opposing them. But the French have deployed their active light cavalry brigade to block that gap. So all in all, still no clear position emerging here. Let's see. Turn 8. All right, turn 8 looking a bit like turn 7 for ADC, so not many for either side. French have 1 initiative just by 1 pip this time. These reinforcements have gone hesitant, not liking the look of what they see. No artillery assault this turn for the French. We tried it on this battery, we got it on that battery over there, and we did get artillery assault off against our Prussian regulars in the centre. Our cuirassiers are also active, as are all of our reserves down here, but both Prussian right-hand brigades this turn are hesitant. For the French, their cavalry in the centre is also hesitant, but all other brigades are active, but no infantry assaults. All right, so French get to go first. They have no charges, I don't believe, this turn. They could try charging those French columns with their cavalry, but I think we'll just try and pin them in place for the moment and leave our artillery to cause damage. So no charges from the French. Let's see if the Prussians choose to charge. Right, so we're just looking at the General d'Armée 2 rules for wheeling charges. Under General d'Armée 1, you could wheel up to the limit of your charge bonus, And actually, under General d'Armée 2, you can move obliquely and wheel freely before you do your charge. So our cuirassiers have taken the opportunity of charging these columns. They started in their front arc, so therefore this will not count as a flank charge, and those lines will have to take a discipline test. So let's do their discipline test. These are conscripts, and they don't get a bonus because they're not in column and they are being hit by these cavalry. They roll a 6, so that is a failed discipline test, and on a 6 or less they will retreat. So I guess that charge can continue into the second unit. Unfortunately for the cuirassiers, they only have 25 centimetres of movement. I think in line for cavalry, yep, 25 centimetres, and they didn't get a victory result because we didn't hit that line in the flank. So it simply causes the infantry to retreat. The cuirassiers, assume, can advance and take the ground, but they can't charge through the now unformed second line. So they are sitting on the crest of that hill. That's their charge result. Now let's do the assault on the guns. For the right, defensive fire for the guns again. Let's see what they can do. Wow, they do all right. Well, they roll a 7, but they do get 2 extra casualties. So 7 is 1 casualty, so that's 3 casualties on this attacking French column. It does take it up to 6. And that will be a discipline test on that Prussian line battalion. They roll a 5 on line, but I think they will take a penalty of 1. They're now at 6 casualties. So that will take them down to reservist status. Let's find this on a reservist roll of 5. They go unformed. All right, let's see what the charge result is. There will be 1 re-roll for the Prussians as they try and execute. Right, so once again, the Prussians have to roll 4 dice and take the lowest 2. Not great. They take a 3. The French get a 10. That's a -7. That's broken. So the defenders stand, and the lead charge unit retreats, and the supports withdraw, all taking casualties. That brigade is thrown back. All right, here we are at the end of turn 8. So the French, starting on the left, the French reserve brigade remains faltering, so not putting any pressure on this Prussian left flank. Prussian reservists deployed into line, volleyed into that square, did cause quite a few casualties. They're up to 6 casualties in that square now, but they do have an exposed flank. The line Prussian brigade, again for the 3rd time, tried to assault these guns and again have been thrown back, and they are in a bad state. They have 1 withdrawing and 1 with retreating unit. They're both unformed. No full test yet, but not much firepower left in that brigade. Over in the centre, the Prussian heavy cavalry has done well, broken through the 1st French line battalion and looks quite threatening. And the Landwehr reserves for the left are now finally moving forward. And the the Landwehr Lancers for the right-hand brigade have formed up, and we have some reserve cavalry, light cavalry, also moving forward. So best opportunity for the Prussians is this heavy cavalry brigade. Can they cause a breakthrough and disrupt the French line? Otherwise, the French are still looking reasonably good, with the Prussian assault on the right checked by that light cavalry brigade there in the distance, which has taken no significant casualties and is holding these Prussian regulars at bay. All right, that's it for turn 8. Will the French need to deploy their young guard? Will they be able to hold this position? We'll see how the last 4 turns play out. All right, so the Prussians got more than their fair share of ADCs this turn. They got all 8. They've put a forwards order on their Landwehr brigade that's coming up to reinforce this left flank attack, and they put re-rolls on most of the rest of their units, including, importantly, their heavy cavalry in the centre here. All units for the Prussians have gone active. For the French, again, it's been doing us so much good. We've put artillery assault on. We put no re-roll on this one, and it went off successfully. We put a re-roll on the battery facing the cuirassiers, which we needed, but that also went off successfully. And for the French, pretty good activations, given they had no ADCs allocated for re-rolls. Simply our light cavalry brigade on the left flank went hesitant, but it's still pinning the Prussians in place ahead of it, so probably not too much of a disaster. So the French have 1 hesitant brigade. Let's see how we do. The French roll a 3. The Russians
Prussians really don't do great, but they do manage a 4. So for a change, the Prussians have initiative. Let's see if they do any charge.
All right, so the Prussian heavy cavalry has gone in against this unformed light infantry battalion. There will be passing fire from the French battery as they charge home. So we'll have 2 dice for artillery assault, 2 light dice for canister, and then our artillery shot itself. Let's see how we do against the cuirassiers. We roll a 7, and then we get 2 extra casualties. So for a 7, there's someone running a tap upstairs. For a 7, on standard artillery result is 1 casualty. So that's 3 casualties on the cuirassiers and a discipline test. They are veterans, but on a 4, this may not be great.
Right, so the lead cuirassier regiment has gone unformed, and let's see what happens when we apply that to the charge.
All right, so as both of these units are unformed, the lead unit only took 2 casualties, the 3rd casualty going on one of its supports. So only took 2 casualties in the turn. So the French and the Russians, Prussians, both being unformed, will both be rolling 3 dice. The French get 1 re-roll, the Prussians 2 from their 2 supporting units. And the Prussians actually get a 3rd because it's heavy cavalry attacking infantry. All right, let's see what we got. We're going to take the 2 lowest dice here. Pretty good rolling for the Prussians. They get an 11 with their 2 lowest dice. And actually, the French also remarkably get an 11. No re-rolls, so that is an exact draw. Let's see what happens. Close to combat. Yeah, okay, so they will close to combat.
So we'll see what happens when those cuirassiers charge in the close combat section. That's charging complete. Let's now do movement.
All right, moving from the French right to left, their reserve brigade has started to deploy into checkerboard formation to potentially assault this Prussian left flank. The Prussian left flank itself has drawn back a little bit to improve its defensive position, and its seriously damaged brigade has reformed at least to potentially renew its assault. The Landwehr have continued their advance. They had a forwards order, so they have now approached the French lines, and our guns along this flank for the Prussians are all deployed. Our cavalry, as we know, is charging in to the French light infantry on the hill there, and the Prussian Landwehr lancers have moved back up again to try and drive off this skirmisher screen that was threatening the Prussian guns down here. Our light cavalry, our hussars and all hands, are moving forward on the left flank of our attack, and a bunch of Prussian units down here have deployed into line to do volleys into the French. Otherwise, various other French units have reformed. These units that were in square have deployed into line as the cavalry threat has at least temporarily disappeared. So we'll see where we get to. Let's do turn 9's firing, starting with the Prussian skirmishers. All right, we'll do some of these on camera this time. So this first Prussian brigade down here will fire at the French guns. We get a 5 and a 6, so that will cause a casualty up to 3 on that French gun. We've got some Prussian skirmishers down here. They will go against this French column. They cause no casualties. Our Prussian skirmishers against the French gun on the hill over there. They also cause no casualties. That's the end of Prussian skirmisher firing. For the French, we've only got 1 forward deployed unit of skirmishers at the moment. That's this one down here. They will fire at that Prussian gun. And they do cause 1 more casualty, taking this gun up to 3 casualties as well. All right, that's it for skirmisher fire. So let's hand over to Prussian artillery. All right, this first gun unlimbered in the turn, so it can only fire a combat dice. It does not do anything. The horse artillery battery will do counter battery fire against the gun on the hill. Let's see how they do. Oh, they do well. They rolled an 11. This is at effective range. So standard artillery fire at effective range is 3 casualties and a discipline test. That takes this French gun up to 6 casualties, takes them to reservist status, and that will also mean they lose their artillery assault. They've taken, they've got a 6 as reservists, which means the gun goes unformed. And the final bit of firing will be this Prussian battery down here, going at the French battery on the hill, also trying to knock it out of artillery assault. Almost certainly won't achieve it. We only roll a 6 for artillery fire, and that one is at long range, causes no casualties. All right, that's it for Prussian artillery fire. Let's see some return fire from the French. We have our unformed battery here. That'll take it down to an inferior battery fire. Will go at this battalion directly in front.
-1 as casualties as well, isn't it?
It's only, yeah, and it's got -6 casualties actually, so it can only, yes, that'll be 2 negative modifiers, so it's only got 1 combat dice to roll, which doesn't cause any casualties, so that French battery is ineffective. The second battery on the hill, could you take the 2 fire dice off it, Charlie? It fired at their cavalry when they charged past it. And then we've got canister from the gun crew on the hill, firing at the skirmishers that are opposing them. So 2 shots for canister fire, but this will be an inferior artillery shot shooting at skirmishers, I believe. But we do roll a 10 with 2 extra casualties. So let's see, targeted skirmishers does move to an inferior modifier. We rolled a 10, so that's 1 casualty, that's 3 casualties and a discipline test on that skirmisher screen. How many casualties are they already on, Charlie?
Which one?
The skirmisher screen in front of the gun that's just in front of you there.
2.
They're on 2, so that takes them up to 5. So that means they will have lost 1 base, and the other one, well, they have to automatically retire. So that screen is broken, and that will be a discipline test on that brigade. All right, now let's do the firing down here. We've got the 2 reservist battalions that are going to open up with their musketry. So target and square, again, I'm just checking, but I don't think there are any adjustments for movement. No, it doesn't look like there are. So this will be 2 standard volleys at those attacking French columns. All right, we were just clarifying something about firing on the skirmishers. So first volley from the Prussian reservists against the lead French battalion. We get an 8. So an 8 is 2 casualties on that lead French battalion, and then the second one will fire on the battalion next to it. We get a double 1. That won't cause any casualties. There you go, the double 1. We've got that skirmisher screen, which we did not actually fire earlier. That'll also go into the edge battalion. That's 1 more casualty on that battalion. And then we've got our line infantry that are also going to fire, that are in line as well. That's a 6, which is 1 casualty on the right-hand battalion. So that's all our Prussian musketry down there. We've got 2 shots from the Landwehr down here as they open up on that French battalion on the hill. We cause 1 more casualty on that battalion there. That's it, spot on. And then we've got a volley from this unit here. That's a 7, so I think that'll be 1 casualty against the French there. A standard is 2 casualties, so it's 2 casualties. Takes them up to 8, I think, Charlie.
Yes.
So that's the Prussian firing all done. We'll now do some return fire from the French. So we'll start in the same place, an inferior volley from the French on the hill that have just taken those 2 casualties. So 7 as an inferior volley is 1 more casualty on the Prussian reservists. And the next battalion will open fire against these Landwehr columns that are approaching. Don't think they're not a charging infantry in column. Yep, so it'll just be a standard volley for the next French battalion. It's a 6. Standard volley is 1 casualty on those Landwehr. So we'll mark that up. Then our battalion down here will fire at that French, so that Prussian battalion next to it. Reroll a 5. which will be one more casualty on those Prussians. We'll do that in a second. And then our 3 columns will fire at the reservists, 1 shot each from each column. And we do 3 casualties on the Prussian units. We'll just mark that. All right, so this looks a tough one for the French. They only get 3 dice. How many have you got, Charlie, for the Prussians?
6.
Okay, let's roll the French. We cause 2 casualties.
1.
You cause 1 casualty. My God, those French reservists managed to hang in there. So cavalry versus infantry. Winning infantry stand, losing cavalry withdraw. Right, let's move on to turn 10. Let's roll for ADCs. Charlie, you get 8, so you need a couple more dice. I think you've got 6. Oh, you got 8 over there. And then the French also get 8 dice.
I got 7 on my dice.
Okay. And the French get not so good. I only get 4. All right, let's allocate those ADCs.
Are these?
All right, so we both went for the re-rolls because we're both fighting for the initiative in turn 10. Charlie's got 1 hesitant brigade, which is his reservists just standing there by his hands. But otherwise, all units are active, so he's got to take the lowest 2 of those.
5.
So you've got 5, and the French have got a 6. So the French do have initiative, fortunately, in this turn, but I'm not sure it's going to help a great deal. All right. Charges. All right, so you can tell Charlie's arrived because the Prussians have gone like mega aggressive this turn. So down here, one of the reservist battalions have charged this weakened French line unit on the hill. There will be some supporting fire from that artillery battery possibly, but they didn't have infantry assault on, so the Prussian battalion is going in unsupported. Similarly, one of the Landwehr battalions has charged as well, again going in unsupported. The French hussars decided to pin that unit of cuirassiers, so they have charged them. But as Charlie pointed out, he didn't countercharge, and therefore he hasn't done a charge with his cuirassiers that turn. So the 2nd Regiment of Cuirassiers has charged that disordered French line unit again. As we move across, his lancers have charged into the flank of the French gun on the hill, and my other light cavalry regiment has charged the front of his line brigade there on the far right, but the trailing regiment has charged the flank of that French column. So a whole load of charges to do. Who's got initiative this turn? The French have got initiative this turn, so French charges go first. We'll start with the hussars against the French cuirassiers, Prussian cuirassiers. All right, so the hussars charge here. It's a straight roll off, but Charlie gets a re-roll for being higher status, being veterans against line, and he also gets a re-roll for being heavy cavalry against campaign cavalry. So let's do the straight roll off. Charlie's got a 6. The French have got a 7. The French are going to try and re-roll the 3. So they get a 10, that's pretty good.
2. I get a 7 on reroll the 3.
I get a 6. All right, so the French do win by 4.
I think it's a land. Isn't it quite close?
Combat with a land defender unformed. So you've still got a chance given that you're heavy cavalry. Yeah, probably will be fairly close. Yeah, right, then the next charge will be my light cavalry against your infantry battalion. You decided not to form square because of the penalties in doing that. So you will have to roll 3d6 and take the 2 lower scores.
I get rerolls there. Don't I get 2 rerolls?
And you get 2 rerolls for your 2 supports. I get 1 reroll. So you start with 3d6, so take the 2 lowest. Okay, so you start on a 5. I start on an 11. I have been really lucky.
2, I got a 9.
Okay.
I think you should bounce off of that.
A 9 and against an 11. Do you want me to check before you try and re-roll the 3? So I've won by 2. Cavalry versus infantry. I combat with a land, you defend unformed.
That's too risky, I think, for me.
Yeah, you're going to try and re-roll the 3.
What happens if I get a 1?
It was exactly the same, so you might as well try and re-roll the 3. Yeah, it's exactly the same. So I've got a land, you go unformed. So 2 good charges from the French there, but now a plethora of charges by the Prussians. So we'll start down here. I've got a defensive volley, but it's going to be an inferior volley and I roll a 3, so that's no effect. All right, so a charge down here by your Prussian reservists. I have to roll 3d6 because I've taken 6 casualties. I am going to farm my artillery first, actually, Charlie. You're going to keep the 8. All right, I'm going to fire my gun at you. That's a 5. That's pretty terrible firing.
And casualties.
But I do get a couple of thingy dice. I get 1 more casualty. A 5 is... so it's 2 casualties on you.
But also remember
So you're up to 6.
But you got 6 as well, so it's a penalty for you.
Ah, yes. So it's no casualties, so just 1 for the combat dice, wasn't it? So you're on 5. So that's vital for you because it keeps you away from your negative modifiers. All right, let's do the charge result then. So you got an 8, and I get 3 dice, and I have to take the lowest 2. I've got 1 reroll because I've got a support. So I've got a 2, not a great result. That was a 5 you were on, wasn't it?
Yeah. Can artillery support?
No, artillery doesn't provide
So the
support.
infantry's quite far, but
The infantry is just within support range. That's how when I deployed them. So I've got to. What did I have? I had a 2, didn't I? So on the reroll, I've got a 5. You've got an 8. You've won by 3 on infantry versus infantry. This is a charge, isn't it?
I really want to just kill that unit.
+3, infantry versus infantry. Take the ground, I retreat, take 4d6 casualties.
Well, that could
And supports take 1 casualty.
Okay, if you're very unlikely, but if you take casualties in all of these, you could die.
I take 1 casualty, and my reserve takes a casualty as well. But I do have to retreat. All right, now these conscripts. So actually, it's a conscript volley, so it's an inferior volley anyway, which I probably didn't apply properly last time. Sorry, Charlie. I think I did cause a couple of casualties.
That was the artillery.
Was it? Okay. So an inferior volley, I've rolled a 6, is 1 casualty on the attacking landwehr. Okay. And then we do a charge result. So I've got a support.
I think it's just a straight roll.
But you're reservist, so you're 1 category higher than me. Because you're enthusiastic infantry in column. So you count as a reservist rather than a conscript, even though you are technically a conscript. But because I'm a conscript and in line, I don't get that benefit. So, but you're not veterans.
I think you should.
So it's a straight roll off. Yeah, straight roll off. But you've got I've got a reroll. You haven't. I get a 5.
I get a 6.
I get an 8. So I'll probably push you back. So I won by 2. Combat with Elan.
Yes.
Oh no, it's -2. Halt and volley. Okay, so no casualties. So you just stop a little bit short of. Right, now we've got Charlie's cuirassiers going in against my unformed infantry. So I have to take 3 dice because I am unformed. And I have no supports because they're all out of range because guns can't support. And it's formed cavalry against infantry in line, so you get a reroll, and you're veterans, so you get 2 rerolls. I get the lowest of these 3 dice.
All 6s for you now.
So I get a 5. That was a 5 with no rerolls.
I'm gonna reroll 1. I get a 7. The other.
An 8. An 8 against a 5. You've won by 3. So cavalry versus infantry. Combat with Elan. Defender unformed. Okay. So
these aren't great for you. I'm putting casualties on you now.
Yeah. All right. Now you're charging the flank of the gun. Interestingly, bizarrely, there doesn't seem to be a modifier here for a flank attack, which seems strange. Lead units got casualties, or casualties are unformed. There must be a thing for a flank attack. We'll just check, see if we can find something about the flank. All right, so Charlie charged with his hussars. They caught the gun in the flank. It had to take a morale test. It rolled a 3, so it failed its morale test. So that's a victory result for the cavalry. So they've charged on and hit the infantry unit to the rear behind them. So this could be big trouble here for the Prussians. All right, so I am formed, but it is cavalry.
I think it's just +1 for me.
Formed cavalry versus infantry in line, so you get a re-roll for that. But we're both the same morale
Yeah, so just
status, so
re-roll.
you just get a re-roll, and I get a re-roll as well.
My rolling has been so bad.
It
this
has, and
week.
I've rolled a double 6.
I can't win. Okay, I've got a
7. Okay,
Oh my
so
God.
that's a -5. This is cavalry versus infantry, isn't it? All units withdraw, and they both just take 1 combat dice worth of casualties. So the front one doesn't take any, and the rear one takes 1 casualty. Okay.
That's so unlucky. I got a double 1, you got a double 6.
Yeah, but you did destroy the gun, which was the key, a good result, and that's a Falter test, isn't it? Because you've destroyed a unit.
Now this one over here. So it's the exact same.
Yeah, flank attack. So I've got to take a morale test to see if I turn to face, which I fail. So they break. And that'll be another Falter test, and you can go into the flank of the next unit.
So you can do the exact same again.
Yeah,
If it happens 3 times in a row.
I fail.
Oh my god.
They're
I
destroyed.
guess I can't go on
I
any further.
don't know whether you can do 2 victories. All right, Charlie was just reminding me, for any of you who've watched a lot of our games, he did something similar with some Prussian landwehr, didn't you, Charlie? Went into the flank across the whole front of the French forces. Well, he's done it again, charged into the flank. He's broken 2 battalions. So that brigade is on a Falter test, as is the brigade in the centre that's lost its guns. That's it for charges. We'll do some firing off camera. I don't think there'll be too much of it, and we'll come back with the hand-to-hand combat. All right, so we've done our firing. No major impacts from the firing. 1 or 2 more casualties. A couple of casualties, particularly significantly on this gun here. So it's up to 8. Its dispersal point is 10. But Charlie has already caused this brigade in the centre to falter because it lost its gun to the cavalry charge, and then over here because we've lost 2 regiments for the flank attack.
And I think that one might be next to
Now
next
let's do the hand-to-hand combat as the cuirassiers
We'll start with
fight with the hussars. So the hussars, so we both start with 5 dice.
I think it's just 5-5.
So I get 1 for Elan, you lose 1 for being unformed, and then for hand-to-hand combat, we get, let's have a look.
I know it's very equal because my
You're veterans,
yeah.
so you gain 1.
Heavy cavalry.
You're not recruits. You are heavy cavalry, so you gain 1.
Mm-hmm.
And you also look like you gain 1 because you're attacking foot as well.
No, it's wrong. It's wrong one.
No, you've got.
Wait, the cavalry foot.
No. Oh, right. Yeah, you're doing cavalry, aren't you?
It's just equal.
So you get. Let me just check this again. So you should be down to 4.
Yeah.
Then you're heavy cavalry 5.
I'm morale grade.
And you're going against campaign cavalry. So you get another 1 for
So
that.
it's just straight roll off.
Okay. So is it 5 each? Is it?
6 each.
Okay. Wow, French do well to do 5 casualties.
I do 5.
You do 4, don't you?
I do 4.
Okay, so let's. So for a victory of 1 on cavalry versus cavalry, we both go unformed, and we can choose whether to fight. Right, let's do the second round. French do 5, 3 rather.
I got 5.
You got 5. You have won by 2. So a combat result
We
2
both got
plus. First and second round winner takes the ground, and the loser retreats. All right, next Cuirassier regiment charging in against the unformed French Légère.
What do you get?
We did cause 3 casualties,
Oh, I caused 6. 7.
7 casualties. So you've won by 4. Cavalry versus infantry.
Victory.
I think there's actually a bonus result for a high victory. Let's just. All right, great success for the French, for the Prussians there. They have withdrawn all their cuirassiers because they don't like the idea of that light cavalry horse artillery battery that was just in front of them. So they achieved their victories and have fallen back, but they have broken or forced to retreat. So it's not a falter, is it? It was only a forced to retreat.
It was forced to retreat, but that's why I was hoping I could destroy your gun and do another retreat.
Yeah. All right, and then
It's this one.
we have this one down here. So I have a cavalry charge against you. So I start with 5 dice and I've got no penalties, have I?
No.
Okay, and you have
I just get
4 dice. You lose, you lose 1 for having 6 casualties.
I'm losing for being unformed.
I'm not veterans or anything like
I
that.
started unformed, I'm
Cavalry versus square, no, nothing at all. So no modifiers by the look of it. So it's simply 5 versus 4.
Ooh, 3.
3. So that's a draw. So cavalry versus infantry on a draw. The cavalry withdraw and the infantry stand.
Thank God I got 11 casualties in my unit. I think
Oh, wow.
easily withdrawing straight away next time.
Right, so we're just going to do the falter tests at the start of turn. All right, Charlie's telling me I've lost the ridge and ought to fall back and reform, which does have some merit.
This has a quite a good position here as well.
Yeah, there's a second ridge I could fall back on, and I've got my reserves as well. The Prussians, all brigades are active, and actually for the French, all brigades are active, apart from our 2 faltering brigades. So let's just do these 2 faltering brigades on camera.
What's the goal for the Prussians in this game?
Just to drive the French off,
Because what I could
potentially
do,
capture
if
the
those,
town. At
if
the,
those
at the
2 brigades go, I could put a forwards order in my Prussian infantry and try to sprint at the ball before your reserves can get on.
All right, so the first one we're doing is the one that lost its artillery. Okay, the one that lost its artillery battery on the hill. Okay, so we roll a 3, and a 3 for a faltering brigade that is just conscripts is wavering. So any within 2 of its dispersal points withdraw. Retreaters retreat with 4d6 casualties. All other units go unformed. Take 2 casualties or retreat and take 4 casualties. All right. I
So
think.
that way the whole brigade was retreating because it was right here and that's the rest of the brigade. So
Yeah, I
retreat.
don't think we're going to do a re-roll on.
It's too risky, especially because they're recruits.
Yeah.
'Cause
Tough.
that's not too bad a result.
I think we are going to try and re-roll. We get a 1.
We shouldn't have done that.
Serve keeper. Okay, we'll apply that. And then on our other brigade, we've got a 5. So they rally.
But yeah,
They're not in a great position. All right. So the brigade that was up on the ridge here has now fallen back and is still retreating. We have 1 surrounded unit which will undoubtedly die this turn. So we're going to have a second broken brigade on that left flank. We're going to have to bring our young guard on as reserves potentially if we fight on through or if we need to. Now let's roll for initiative. The French have to roll 3 dice. I get 6.
I got 8.
An 8. All right. So the Prussians have initiative for turn 11. 2 more turns to go. We'll come back to that tomorrow. All right, everyone. See you in a bit. And the game will resume on turn 11. Right, here we are with turn 11, and the Prussians have initiative. Be their charges. Right, summary of charges. So for the Prussians, one of their Landwehr battalions has charged this French brigade. It's the last one holding onto the hill. On the far side over there, the Prussians have charged into the flank of that remaining French unit that has been mauled on the far left French flank. The French chasseurs have charged into the line infantry, and down here, one of the French battalions that's coming up in reserve has charged the Prussian reserves. So let's do the Prussian charges first. We'll start over on the far flank. We need to do a morale test to try and turn to face this incoming charge on our flank by the Prussians. We roll a 4, so we fail, we disperse, and we now have a broken brigade on that flank. So the remaining units in that brigade will have to return. Here the Landwehr will charge the French line. The artillery are in arc but were unformed. So this will be an inferior battery fire, but it will still get 2 combat dice for being in canister range. French do well, they roll an 11. Their artillery has been good this game, and they get a bonus casualty from the casualty dice. So on 11, they haven't moved, so that is 2 casualties. So there'll be 3 casualties on the attacking landwehr and a discipline test. So that takes them up to 4, so not yet at the point of a penalty. And let's see what their roll is. They are enthusiastic. They haven't failed a morale check yet, have they? They were thrown back from a charge, but I don't think that was a discipline test, so I think they can still keep that enthused modifier. So we've rolled an 8 for a reservist, and we've got 1 bonus level, so that takes us up to 9. Sorry, I'm looking at a faltering test there. Hang on a second. Where are the discipline tests? So for a reservist, because they get a bonus on an 8 or more, they carry on. All right, so they pass the discipline test and they will go into charge mode. They don't have supports because they didn't have infantry assault in place. And there is, of course, still a defensive volley from the French, because that was the artillery firing first. All right, so on the defensive volley, we roll a 9 and a casualty dice for firing on a column. So this could well throw this charge back. We'll have to check what an 8 does, so we'll keep that 8 roll for its. Oh no, that was the discipline test for the artillery firing. So I'm keep confusing myself. All right, so for a 9, for a standard volley is 3 casualties and another discipline test and 1 more for the artillery dice. All right, so this takes them up to 4 more casualties, which takes them up to a total of 8. So this will be a discipline test at a modifier for having 8 casualties. All right, so you're demoted if you've taken 6 plus casualties. So they are raw anyway, so they can't be demoted anymore. So let's take a second discipline test from this second set of firing. We roll an 8 again, so they go unformed. This will not help their charge. All right, now let's do the charge results as these landwehr try. Right, so this doesn't look good for the landwehr. They'll have to roll 4 dice because they are both shaken and unformed. They get no rerolls because they have no supports, because this was an unsupported charge, and the French do have rear support, so they will get a reroll. Let's see what we get. Well, the French roll really badly. They only roll a 4, and even the 2 lowest dice for the Prussians are a 7. So the Prussians are winning at the moment, and the French will re-roll that 1. And they roll it to an 8. So it's a pretty close result. It's a -1. So the landwehr will halt and do a volley. It'll just be 1 dice, which does cause 1 casualty on the French, but the charge does not. Right, we'll do the French charges here. So we have a Prussian reservist volley against this attacking French column. No other supporting fire. They roll a 4, that'll be no casualties and nothing for the casualty dice, so no effect from that defensive volley. Thinking about it, the Prussian skirmishers there probably can do passing fire because they've got a 360-degree fire arc. They do 1 casualty on the attacking French column, but not enough to disturb the charge. All right, now let's do the roll-off. The French will have no supports. The Prussians will have a support because of that battalion that's sitting behind them, but no other modifiers to this one. All right, the French roll a 7, the Prussians roll a 4. The Prussians will take their reroll and they go up to an 8. So again, the French column will stop short and do a volley at the reservists, which doesn't cause any casualties, so no effect from that charge. And then finally, we'll do the charge by our chasseurs against the Prussian line infantry. No casualties on that line infantry unit. I don't think they're going to try and form square. Column is a pretty good formation to defend against cavalry, and there's always a risk that you go unformed if we fail the discipline test. So we will stay in column and do the charge. All right, so it'll be a straight roll off, but the the Prussians get a re-roll because they're in column against a charging cavalry unit, and the French also get a re-roll for their supporting battalion. So let's see what we get. French roll well. They've got, the French have got a 9, the Prussians have got a 6. Prussians will do their first reroll on the 1. They go up to an 11, so that's a -2 results for the charging cavalry. I think they'll leave it at that. So -2 cavalry versus infantry. All units withdraw, both sides take 1 combat dice worth of casualties. So the defenders stand, the cavalry pull back. All right, here we are at the end of turn 11. So the Prussian reserves formed line and have volleyed and exchanged fire with the French reservists, with the French reserve brigade that was in the village. They have continued to advance and support the battalion that attacked last turn. In the centre, the French did an emergency limber with their artillery battery, pulled it back off the hill, and their 2 line battalions that have not yet been pushed back off the ridge have started retreating backwards slowly to pull back from the Prussian artillery fire, being the only units left on the ridge. For the Prussians, all their cavalry have now formed up and moved up ready to exploit, and their line infantry brigade on the right is again moving out. But we're on turn 11. There's a risk that the French army just breaks, but we'll see what happens. The French have lost a brigade, so their core ADC goes down 1 category, so he's only got 1 emergency order. All right, let's move on to turn 12, see what they do. But the French are going to do, the emergency rally order with their corps commander to recover their 2nd brigade in the centre. Certainly we need to remember that this time because we forgot to do it last turn. All right, but actually, even though I forgot, it's probably good because it's helped the French withdrawal to the 2nd ridge outside town. Right, let's roll for ADCs and let's see what happens in this last. Right, roll for initiative. Both sides have got Heston Brigade. For the Prussians, their most advanced infantry brigade on that far right flank has gone hesitant. Actually, they had 2. Also, their lancers and hussars went hesitant. For the French, their reserve cavalry in the centre went hesitant. All other units are active. The French have put infantry assault on their most right-hand brigade, and they've done their reform order, their corps order, to automatically rally one of their brigades. So they're going to be rallying that brigade on the centre. For the Russians, we've put infantry assault on the Landwehr, see if they can try and break this brigade remaining on the hill. And they've also put a forwards order and forwards order on the cuirassiers to try and crash them into this French line, see what they can do. But the French have initiative. Let's see how they're charged. Right, so there'll be 2 lots of defensive fire for the infantry battalion being assaulted, for its flanking battalion, and actually the skirmishers will also get to shoot as passing fire. Let's see what the skirmishers do. They do 1 casualty. I think we'll put it on this flanking battalion. That looks like the one that makes the most sense, as they would take that shot first. All right, then the defensive volley for the Prussians in line. They roll a 7 plus 1 more for a casualty dice for firing at a charging column. So a 7, I think that'll just be 1 casualty. A 7 is 2 casualties and a discipline test. So that'll be 2 casualties on the French charging column and a discipline test. Let's put 3 down there, but it is only 2. Let's do the French discipline test. They roll a 9. They survive that. All right. Okay, so then the 2nd volley from the supporting battalion. Much better. A 12 and a casualty dice. So this will be a destiny test. I'll make sure I've marked up the casualties properly. Okay, so with a 12, they cause 3 casualties. So that'll be the majority on the attacking unit. That takes it up to 4. And then 1 more on the supports. We'll put it on this rear battalion this time to share those out. And there'll be another falter test on the attacking French. They roll a 10. They are determined to go in. These conscripts are feeling very motivated. All right, that's all the shooting. Let's do the destiny test result. It's a 5. So on a 5, infantry and cavalry will recover one casualty. So this Prussian battalion, because it's this one who did it, goes down to 2 casualties. Right, that's all the firing. So let's do the assault now. For the French will have to roll 3 dice because they did take 3 casualties in the assault. For the Prussians, they will simply roll 2 dice. The French get 2 re-rolls. The Prussians get 1. French roll a 7. Prussians roll I've done that the wrong way around. So the French had to roll 3 dice, didn't they? So the French have to take the lowest 2. That'll be a 1 and a 4, and the Prussians have got a 7. Prussians will re-roll a 2 with their support. Wow, they get up to 11. The French have 2 re-rolls. They get up to a 10. They will stick on that. That's a -1, so the charge won't go home. They will do a volley, and that causes no effect. So last French charge of the game there bounces off the defending Prussian lines. All right, now let's do the charges in the centre as the Prussian units charge. All right, so this French battalion gets a defensive volley. It simply causes 1 casualty on the attacking landwehr. Do need to remember these French are conscripts, which automatically penalises their firing. I'm not sure I've been doing that consistently, which if not, apologies. All right, so then otherwise we have a straight roll-off. Both sides get a re-roll for their supports. The French roll a 6, the Prussians roll an 8. The Prussians will wait for the French, and I think the French will re-roll that. They only get a 5. Prussians aren't going to re-roll, they've won by 3. So on a charge, winning by 3. 3 plus. Infantry versus infantry, the defenders retreat, take 4 combat dice worth of casualties, and supports take 1 combat dice worth of casualties, and the French lose the ground. The Prussians take the last element of the ridge. So Charlie is bemoaning the fact that he didn't get to play the last turn, aren't you, Charlie? Yeah, yeah, he did. He had great impact on the turn. He arrived on the table, launching all those Prussian assaults. So here we are at the end of turn 12. The French are certainly still holding this right flank. They have 2 intact brigades, although, as Charlie pointed out, the one that's retreated back into the village, 2 of those battalions and its artillery are very close to being broken. But this brigade is still pretty fresh, if a bit exposed. The Prussians have thrown the French off this ridge that runs along here and will be able to occupy it. But the French hold the far right flank. They're still in control of the centre of the village. Their cavalry brigades are intact to help pin the Russian advance back, and they are reforming on this small ridge outside town. So I think, although the Prussians did really well, this time the French conscripts held up, managed to hold off the French for long enough, and yes, those two brigades of Young Guard didn't have to come onto the table and be deployed. All right, there we go. Happy Christmas, everybody. Hope you like the Christmas trees, and we'll see you again next time for our next game in 2025. Have a great Christmas. Cheers.